Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about ratios and extended ratios. So just a plain old ratio is a comparison of two quantities, and there are three different ways to write it. So the most common way is to write it as a fraction, A to B. Or you can write it with a colon in between, A to B. You can also write it out in words, A to B. Now, ratios can also be simplified, which makes sense since they're pretty much fractions. So let's think of maybe about 4/12. I can simplify 4/12 by dividing the top and the bottom by 4, and I get 1/3. Or I can take 4 to 12, written with the colon in between, divide each of those by 4, and still get 1 to 3. Same thing with words. If we have 4 to 12, we can divide both of those by 4, and it'll be the same thing as 1 to 3. So that whole idea of simplifying a fraction works on each way to represent that ratio. So now let's go through and solve some problems related to ratios. So it says a music store has 40 trumpets, 38 clarinets, 24 violins, 51 flutes, and 16 trombones. Write each ratio in simplified form. Okay, so the first one is asking for trumpets to violins. So there are 40 trumpets, and it also tells us that there are 24 violins. So trumpets, since it comes first, that would go on the top or come first, over 24. Now, you might recognize the biggest number that goes into both 40 and 24 really quickly, or you might not. So if you see that 8 goes into both of those, please divide both 40 and 24 by 8 and simplify. If you're not seeing that though, it's also really easy to just keep on simplifying until you get to your answer. So maybe you might recognize that, hey, both 40 and 24 are even, so I'll divide by 2. So now I have 20 over 12. Those are still even, so now I can divide by 2 again. So now I have 10 over 6. They're still even, so I can divide by 2 again, and I end up with 5/3. Now there's no number that goes into both 5 and 3 other than 1. So that's my answer. I also, at the beginning, like I said, could have divided by 8. So 40 divided by 8 is 5. 24 divided by 8 is 3. So you could have gotten there in less steps. Remember, you can also write it as 5 to 3. Okay, now let's try flutes to clarinets. So there are 51 flutes, and there are 38 clarinets. So since flutes came first, that has to go on top. Clarinets came second, so that goes on the bottom. It's 38. Now, there's no number that goes into both 51 and 38, so it's simplified. You can also write it as 51 to 38. Go ahead and try the next one on your own. Okay, so there are 16 trombones and 40 trumpets, so we have 16 over 40. You might have noticed that 8 went into both of them. You might not have, but either way, when you simplify, you end up with 2 to 5, or 2/5. So now we want to look at violins to total instruments. So violins, remember there's 24 violins, and if we go ahead and we add 40 plus 38 plus 24 plus 51 plus 16, that gives me 169 for how many instruments there are. Good deal. So since violins go first, that's up on top, over, and then instruments come second, that's on the bottom, that's 169. There's no numbers that go into both 24 and 169, so it's simplified. Okay, now let's use ratios to find some angle measures. So it says the ratio of two complementary angles is 3 to 7. Find the measures of both angles. So the first thing we have to remember we talked about this earlier, was what's a complementary angle? Complementary angles are angles that have a sum of 90 degrees. Remember, a sum means that they're going to add to equal 90 degrees. Sound good? All right. Now, here's kind of a silly idea. Just come with me for a second, okay? So back up here, like let's take a look at number 3. I had to divide the top by 8 and the bottom by 8 to get this simplified fraction, right? Okay, well now what they're saying is that we had this fraction that turned out to be 3 to 7 after I simplified it. So if we want to go backwards, since we divided, now we need to multiply, right? So we need to multiply by a number that we don't know what it is. And when we have a number that we don't know what it is, we call it x. So earlier, 3 had to be multiplied by some number, and 7 had to be multiplied by that same number. You picking up what I'm putting down? Cool. All right, so those two angles are going to have a sum of 90. So that means that I'm going to take these two angles, my 3x and my 7x, and I'm going to add them together, and that equals 90. So now we'll combine like terms and solve. So 3x plus 7x is 10x equals 90. We'll divide by 10 on both sides. So x equals 9. Now that's all fine and dandy, but make sure that you're actually answering the question that they're asking for. It says to find the measures of both of the angles. Well, we were trying to figure out what number I multiplied by originally. Turns out it was 9. So I'm going to have to take 3x, or 3 times 9, to get one of the angles. It's 27 degrees. And then I'll also have to take 7 times x, or 7 times 9, to get 63 degrees for the other angle. Okay, so on this next one, now we're talking about the ratio of supplementary angles. So remember last time we were together, we talked about how supplementary angles, they have a sum of 180 degrees. So go ahead and solve that problem, please. Good deal. So we should have added up 4x and 1x to equal 180, and then solved to get x equals 36. Then we'll plug 36 in for x for each angle. So 4 times 36 is 144 degrees. 1 times 36 is 36 degrees. Now let's talk about extended ratios. So extended ratios are exactly what you think they are. They are ratios that we then extend out and put on a few more values. So this is comparison of 3 or more quantities. You don't see this very often. Now, it's not like we're going to make a double-decker fraction where there's like a part in the middle or anything like that. The way that we write out extended ratios is with the colons in between. So A to B to C. Okay. So the extended ratio of the measures of the angles of a triangle is 4 to 7 to 9. Find the measures of the angles. All right. So we know that the angles inside of a triangle, they have a sum of 180. Now, this ratio is simplified, right? So we took 4 times some number, 7 times the same number, and 9 times the same number to end up with what are actually the measures of my angles. So I'm just going to make a little picture real quick. Here's a 4x. Here's a 7x. Here's a 9x. I know it's not to scale, but who cares? So we know that all the angles of a triangle add up to 180. So I'm going to add all these up. 4x plus 7x plus 9x equals 180. So then we'll go ahead and combine 4x, 7x, and 9x since they're all on the same side. So 4x plus 7x plus 9x is 20x equals 180. Since 20 and x are being multiplied, I have to divide by 20 on both sides to get x by itself. So x will equal 9. So now to find all the actual angles, all we have to do is just go and plug it in. So 4x really means that we need to take 4 times 9, my x, and get 36 degrees. Oopsies, 36 degrees. Then we need to plug it into that 7x. So 7 times 9, and that is 63 degrees. Then we had 9x, or 9 times 9. So my last angle is 81 degrees. It doesn't matter what order you put those in. I'm happy either way. Go ahead and try the next one. You only have to find the measure of the largest angle. So that means plug x in for 11. All right, so on this guy, we went through and added up 11x, 2x, and 5x and got 18x, divided by 18 on both sides and got x equals 10. And since they only want us to find the largest angle, I'm going to plug that 10 into my 11x, since that's my largest number. So 10 times 11 is 110 degrees. All right. Now the ratios of the measures of the sides of a triangle are 2 to 8 to 9. If the perimeter of the triangle is 76 inches, find the length of each side. So before this ratio was simplified, this was 2 times some number, 8 times the same number, 9 times the same number, right? Okay. Now we have this triangle. It's not to scale, but that's okay. And these are lengths of sides. So maybe this side is the 2x, this side is the 8x, this side is the 9x. Now to find a perimeter, you add up all the sides, right? So for the perimeter, and why do I care about the perimeter? Because they're telling me that the perimeter of the triangle is 76. So for the perimeter, we add up all the sides, 2x, 8x, 9x, and set it equal to what that perimeter is, and they told me in the problem that it's 76 inches. So now I'm going to combine together 2x plus 8x plus 9x. That's going to give me 19x equals 76. Then I'll divide both sides by 19, and we'll end up with x equals 4. So to find the length of each side, we're going to plug in 4 for x into all of those guys. So 2x, or 2 times 4, is 8. And remember, we're in inches, so I'm going to make sure to label it inches. Then we had 8x. So we'll have 8 times 4 is 32 inches. And then we had 9x, or 9 times 4 is 36 inches. Go ahead and try that last one on your own. Good deal. So we knew that 10 to 15 to 6, that was simplified. So earlier it was 10 times some number, 15 times the same number, and 6 times the same number. Then they told me that the perimeter is 217, so I'm going to add up all the side lengths and set it equal to my perimeter and end up with x equals 7. Since they want the shortest side, we're going to plug it into 6x, since that's the smallest one. All right, I'll see you guys later.